I wonder if you get to the end of your life, will you look over your life and say, yeah, I went about things very terribly. Like I lied, I cheated, I stole, I was a bad husband, I was a bad father. But you know what? I got the house I wanted. Is that something that you'll look back on and say, so therefore it was a well-lived life? There's a reason that so many millionaires and billionaires give away all their money before they die. It's not just because it's no use to them. It's almost like they're trying to buy back their past. But I can promise you that nobody is rich enough to buy back their past. Now I ask that question because there are a lot of things in life that you might really enjoy. And then as soon as you start doing it in a serious way, you might stop enjoying it. Like for example, you might really like playing games, but then it gets frustrating and annoying, so then the question is, why do you continue to play? If you're just doing it for fun, well then you would probably stop playing. But if you're doing it for a job, you don't have that choice. Like for example, last night I was over at the gym here, Choose Fitness, and I came across one of my former students. He's a musician. He's a working musician. He records, makes videos. Some of you might know who he is, actually. I hadn't seen him there in 6 months or so. So I was like, bro, I haven't seen you in a while. He's like, yeah, and he was talking about he's just working a bunch. And I love talking to him because it isn't like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. It's matter of fact. It's like, yeah, I'm working here. And he was just saying it's just exhausting. And he says, today is like the first day this is the first day off I've taken like in 2 or 3 months. And I said, so you take your first day off and you come work out? And he's laughing. He says, yeah. And he says, but what's really funny is, like today, he told his booking agent, he told his manager, he said, I'm not working today. He had to clear with everybody before, I'm not working today. And he's like, but you know what? I think I'm gonna go home, and I think I'm gonna do some music when I get home. And we were laughing because why would he go home and make music? Why would that appeal to him? I mean, he was taking the day off to get away from it. What he was taking a day off from was not music, it was the responsibilities associated with it. Because normally he has to be, in Minneapolis, or he has to be in the place. And he said, at first it's great because these are places you've never visited before. And it's nice to be able to say, oh, I'm doing all this. But when you actually have to be there, and you have to talk to this radio station, you have to talk to this podcaster, after the first few, it gets to be like, wow, is this what the dream was? You realize that's what contributes to the dream. But eating a steak is very different from butchering a cow. And when you actually have to butcher the cow and process it and then cook it up and everything, it gives you a different appreciation for the steak. And you realize that eating the steak is a very small portion of the whole thing. Owning a restaurant where you sell steak, is going to be a very small portion of what you do if you run the restaurant. You might say, I got into opening a restaurant because I just really like cooking steak. I love cooking meat and people like it, so I want to make people happy. But then you realize that that's just a very small part of what you actually do. And the thing that you thought would make you happy, I'm going to live a life of just, cooking steak. You would have been happier as a chef. You've been much happier as a chef. You're way less happy as a restaurant owner. You make more money as a restaurant owner if you're successful, if the restaurant is successful. But the things that make us seem to feel happy, by the way, are the things that lead us way headlong into harm. I think what will make me feel happy is if I open a restaurant. Is that what you want to do with your life? You want to be an accountant? You want to be a marketing manager? You want to be a customer service representative? You want to handle distribution? No, I want to own a restaurant. That's what owning a restaurant is. It's all of those things into one. And all the risk associated with it. And if you have time, if you're not too busy from doing all of that, well then yeah, you get to cook steaks once in a while. But that isn't what a lot of us think of it as being. This friend of mine, when he finds himself working as a working musician, making music is a very small part of what he does. In fact, he even says he's told me before, that he has a hard time finding time to make music because of all the other things that he has to do. He's like writing stuff on a plane, or he's in a car and he's trying to write something in a car. It takes away a lot of what, when he started doing it as a teenager, it was just like in his bedroom with some friends for some fun. Now, that's kind of what the song is about. The song starts off, he says, at the record company meeting, on their hands a dead star. And they're excited about that, the record company, because when the star dies, how much do they make off of them? 10 times what they made when they were alive. You can re-release old songs. You can, what happens, think about when a musician dies, all of a sudden their stuff is all over the radio, and we're all remembering the good times from that person. So even just from the radio plays and the streams, the record companies can make a ton of money off that person. And then afterward, you can reissue things. You can go back and find unreleased tracks. All the new merchandise that you can start selling now also because of that person being dead. And so he points out there at the record company meeting that on their hands is a dead star, and they're excited about it. And then it's written from the perspective of a fan, and a fan who got to meet them one time. And it goes through and says, this was your life. You're running around, you're pleasing MTV, you're pleasing the BBC, you're pleasing the press, and this was your life. And he asks this great question at one point, actually 2 points. He asks him, but you could have said no, and you could have walked away, couldn't you? And the truth is that he couldn't have, because there were too many people counting on him. And this is what's going, and we might think of it as this is a warning about fame, but it's really not. It's a warning about almost anything else that you pursue. You really want to open a restaurant? Okay. You're going to have employees work for you. And now the decisions that say you have 10 employees. Now the decisions that you make don't just affect your life, they affect the lives of 10 other people. If you make a good decision, those 10 people have jobs. If you start making bad decisions, you need to start laying people off, which affects their lives. And the more successful, quote, that you are in life, at least the higher up you move, the more people are going to depend on you. And so just quitting and walking away isn't so easy. And even, by the way, even if it's not being in a high-powered position, even if it's just having a family. If you're working at, let's say you're working at a job where you're earning, I don't know, say $25 an hour, which you might think, well, it's a lot of money. Not anymore. Not since we raised the minimum wage to $20 for fast food workers. So now you're earning just a few dollars. You might think, well, yeah, but it's 5 over minimum wage. It's 20% over minimum wage. And so you're working now 40 hours a week. Now I guess the question becomes, why don't you just quit? You hate the job. Why don't you go find something that you love? Well, you can't, because you've got people that are depending on you now. You have a family who's depending on you. And so it's kind of this story about how almost, what's the word I'm thinking of? How crazy how crazy fast those responsibilities can pile up. And when we say things like, you have to go do what makes you happy. I don't know, how do you know what makes you happy? Would owning a restaurant make you happy? Well, you won't know until you own a restaurant. And then when you do, you can make the decision at that point. Until then, you have a romanticized idea of what it is to own a restaurant. Just like we all have a romanticized idea of what it is to be a pop star. So I don't know if you can ask yourself, and I don't know, are pop stars just are people who are depressed, do they just tend to become pop stars, or do pop stars become depressed because of seeing the reality of what their life is like? And so, bless you. So, I don't know. When people say that money can't buy happiness, you can rent it. But I suppose it depends on how much money you have, if you can even say that or not. You have to have money before you can actually make that assessment. Because most of us think that the real problems in our lives are the things that we don't have. Like, we start from this place of, I'm unhappy. Now, why am I unhappy? What do I lack? And we start looking around for things. That person's rich. If I had that car, I'd be happy. They have that house. They have that person. They have this. They have that. Whatever it is that we think we're lacking is the thing that we think is going to make us happy. But that's because those are the obvious, like, physical things that are in front of us. The harder things to understand are the non-physical things. Things like meaning, purpose, understand the difference between happiness and joy. Because if it's a physical thing that's in your hand, now you can say, I actually have this thing. But those other things, how do you know you even have them? Even something like love, how do you even know that you have it? You can know that you have strong feelings for a person. How do you know that they feel the same way about you? And how can you know that it's going to be permanent or forever? Because you can't live in forever. You can only live in right now, this moment right now. So you can know the value right now. But that can make you uncertain and anxious about the future. But it's this phrase here that makes us feel happy. Now, we hear that and we think, oh, he's just talking about being happy. No, this guy's an incredible lyricist, man. There's never been a better lyricist in pop music than this guy. I mean, even if you don't like their music, the lyrics themselves, they're literature, dude. They're incredible. I mean, very few people even if you don't like the Smiths. I mean, I don't know how you could live with yourself. But let's say that you didn't like the Smiths, you still have to recognize that his lyrics are just unbelievable. He didn't just put the words "feel happy" in there because he didn't have anything else to say. He's being very specific here. He's not saying what makes most people happy. That would have been just as easy to say as what makes most people feel happy. Meaning that he's drawing a distinction between the things that actually make you happy and the things that make you feel happy. There's a difference there. And so the things that make us feel happy, the things that we think are going to make us happy, are the very things that lead us headlong into harm. And it's not just like, oh, drugs might make you feel happy, but they also might lead you into harm. No, it's more than just that. If the thing that you're pursuing, for example, is love, because you think that love is going to make you feel happy, it might lead you headlong into harm because you might be so committed to it that you're just going to, be blind to everything else. I'm going to ignore everything else. I'm going to ignore all the problems. I'm going to ignore all the red flags. I'm going to ignore all the obvious things that are the deficiencies in my personality. In fact, why is it that I'm so dead set on finding love? What am I lacking in myself? And unless we have the wisdom to ask that question, we maybe don't even notice that we're even lacking anything. Like somebody, what's the last prayer they're asking you? They asked you, how do you know? How do you find?
How do you know it's a good life?
Yeah, how do you know? How do you know it's a good life? Like, how do you know what a good life is? And you can't. You can't. That's the frightening thing for most people. Well, I mean, I guess you can. But the work that it takes to do it is unsatisfying for most people. Like, you look at someone like Marcus Aurelius, and he would say that a good life is to live well. How do you live well? Well, you live for justice. You live for wisdom. You live for courage, and you live with temperance. And if you fulfill those four things, then you live a good life. Oh, but what if you have all those things and you end up homeless? The result isn't the point. The point is the actual living. You live well. Oh, but living well won't get me the things I want. And Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics generally would say, and that's why you'll never be happy. Because life is about a matter of pursuit and want. And you're always going to want something else. You're always going to pursue something else. Yeah, but won't that help me get more and more and more? Yeah, but it won't get you the thing. I mean, did you say you wanted more and more and more? Or did you say that you wanted to be happy? Or did you say you want to have a good life? Because those are very different things. What is it exactly that you're after? And the problem is that most of the things that we're after aren't the things that we're after. We want the things that we want, not the things that we need. And if you're lucky, you can get the things that you want and the things that you need lined up pretty well. But for a lot of people, they're so far askew. They're so different. And that means that you can get all the things that you want, but it won't give you the thing that you need. And it won't even get you the thing that you actually really want. Because if I were to ask you, what is it that you want in life? Most of us answer that question as a right now thing. Or we think about, what I want right now is what I'm going to want in 20 years. Or moreover, what I want right now is the thing that right on my deathbed, I'm going to be able to look over my life and evaluate it based off of that. I want to have like a stable family or stable job or whatever. And I wonder, if you get to the end of your life, will you look over your life and say, yeah, I went about things very terribly. You know, like I lied, I cheated, I stole, I was a bad husband, I was a bad father. But you know what? I got the house I wanted. Is that something that you'll look back on and say, so therefore it was a well-lived life? There's a reason that so many millionaires and billionaires give away all their money before they die. It's not just because it's no use to them. It's almost like they're trying to buy back their past. But I can promise you that nobody is rich enough to buy back their past. You can't pay for that. And so the thing that makes most of us feel happy are exactly the things that lead us headlong into harm. You know, money makes me happy, so you'll find yourself doing all kinds of things for money. In fact, at one point in the song, he makes a reference to, it says a world tour, and then in parentheses, he refers to the person as a media whore. Why you have to do a world tour, what do you have to do? Whatever the press wants you to do. Show up when you don't want to show up, sing and dance when you don't want to sing and dance. You know, be happy and joyful when you're not. Pretend to be up, pretend to be things that you're constantly not. You're exhausted, doesn't matter. Get out there. You know, here's a quick shot of something to pretend like you're happy, pretend like you're upbeat, and you live a whole life not being able to be who you are. What's the point in trying to be happy if you don't get to be who you are? That would suggest that the real you never gets to be happy. Just this avatar thing. Love, same thing. Find yourself compromising yourself in all kinds of ways, just out of a desire. Moreover, out of an absolute need to be appreciated and loved by somebody else. And so on, and so on, and so on. You get the idea. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques?